"I'm too young to be tied down," my fiancée said, calling off the wedding but keeping the ring. I sued her for the ring back, plus emotional damages. The judge made her hand it over in court. All right, Reddit, this one's a ride. My fiancée called off our wedding 2 months before the date, claimed she was too young to be tied down, then refused to give back the engagement ring. So I sued her. What happened in that courtroom was pure justice. Strap in. I'm 31 male, a custom furniture maker in Nashville. Started my business 6 years ago after apprenticing under an old craftsman who taught me everything about woodworking. The kind of stuff you can't learn from YouTube: hand-cut dovetails, traditional joinery, wood selection that comes from decades of experience. Now I run my own workshop with 2 employees, making high-end custom pieces for clients who appreciate quality over mass-produced garbage. The work is steady, pays well, and I own my equipment outright. No loans, no debt except my mortgage. Got a small house in East Nashville that I bought 3 years ago. 2 bedrooms, detached garage I converted into my personal workshop. The neighborhood's gentrifying fast, so the property value keeps climbing. Smart investment, according to my accountant. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm comfortable. Drive a paid-off truck, keep my expenses low, save aggressively. My dad lost everything in a bad business partnership when I was a kid, so I learned early that financial security doesn't happen by accident. You build it brick by brick, and you protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. My life was exactly how I wanted it. Work I loved, financial stability, good friends, and what I thought was a solid relationship heading toward marriage. That's where Kayla comes in. Met Kayla, 26 female, 2 years ago at a friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I was a groomsman. Classic setup, except it actually worked. She was finishing her degree in graphic design, working part-time at a boutique downtown. Pretty, ambitious, had this energy that made boring stuff seem interesting. Our first date turned into one of those all-night conversations where you lose track of time. She seemed genuinely interested in my work, asked smart questions about the craft, wanted to see photos of my projects. Most people's eyes glaze over when I start talking about wood grain and joinery techniques, but Kayla got it, or at least she pretended to, which was good enough. The relationship moved fast. Within 6 months, she was spending most nights at my place. Within a year, she'd basically moved in, though she kept her apartment as a studio space for her design work. I didn't mind. I liked having her around, and the house felt less empty with someone else there. Looking back, there were small signs I chose to ignore. She had expensive taste but a student budget, which meant I ended up covering most of our dates, groceries, and entertainment. When I suggested cooking at home to save money, she'd pout and say she wanted to experience life while she was young. I'd cave and take her to whatever trendy restaurant she'd found on social media. Her friends were a particular type, the kind who measured success by Instagram followers and designer labels. They'd come over and make comments about my house being cozy in that tone that really means small. One of them actually asked if I was planning to upgrade once we got married, like my house was some kind of starter model I'd outgrow. Kayla would laugh it off, but she never defended me or the life I'd built. That should have told me something. She also had this habit of comparing us to other couples. Rachel's boyfriend just surprised her with a trip to New York, she'd say. Or, Jessica's engagement ring is 2 carats. Never direct criticism, just these little observations that made me feel like I was constantly coming up short. But she was beautiful, fun when she wanted to be, and I convinced myself that every relationship had its rough patches. Plus, all her friends were getting engaged, and she'd started dropping hints that she was ready for that next step. The pressure was subtle but constant. Year 2, I proposed. Did the whole traditional thing, asked her father for permission, planned a nice dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date, got down on one knee with a ring that cost me $12,000. That ring was a major purchase for me. 3 months of careful saving, research on diamonds and settings, working with a jeweler I trusted. It was a princess-cut diamond, 1.5 carats, platinum band. The kind of ring that says, "I'm serious about building a future with you." The jeweler was this older guy who'd been in the business for 30 years. He walked me through the 4 C's: cut, clarity, color, carat, and helped me understand what I was actually paying for. We looked at dozens of options before finding the right one. He even sized it perfectly based on a ring of Kayla's I'd secretly borrowed. When I picked it up, he put it in this velvet box and said, "Whoever she is, she's a lucky woman." I remember thinking I was the lucky one. She cried when I proposed, said yes immediately, posted 17 photos on social media within an hour. Her friends went crazy in the comments, and for a few weeks we were that couple, the one everyone envied. The wedding was set for October. We picked a venue in the Smoky Mountains, booked a photographer, hired a caterer. The deposits alone cost me $8,500. Kayla wanted everything perfect, and I wanted her happy, so I paid for most of it. She was still in school and working part-time, so her financial contribution was minimal. I didn't mind at the time. I was the one with the established income, and it felt right to invest in our future. The venue selection process itself was exhausting. We looked at 12 different places over 2 months. Kayla would fall in love with a location. I'd put down a deposit to hold the date, then she'd change her mind after seeing something on Pinterest. The first venue we booked, I lost a $500 deposit when she decided it wasn't rustic enough. The second one was too rustic. Finally, we settled on a mountain lodge that cost more than the first two combined. The photographer was another saga. Kayla insisted on this award-winning photographer whose portfolio she'd been following for months. The woman charged $3,500 for the wedding package, plus travel expenses since she was based in Atlanta. I negotiated down to $3,200, thinking I was being smart about finances. Kayla wasn't even grateful. She was annoyed I'd haggled over our special day. Every decision became a production. Flowers, centerpieces, invitations, the style of chairs at the reception. She'd spend hours scrolling through wedding blogs and showing me options that all looked identical to my eyes. When I'd say, "They all look nice, you choose," she'd get upset that I wasn't engaged in the process. The menu tasting alone took an entire Saturday. We sampled 7 different entrees, 4 salad options, and debated the merits of plated service versus buffet for 2 hours. I genuinely didn't care. Food is food, but Kayla treated it like we were making life or death decisions. Her parents covered the rehearsal dinner and her dress. My contribution covered basically everything else. Venue, catering, photographer, flowers, music, honeymoon. We'd planned a week in Costa Rica, already paid for. Another $4,200 gone. The Costa Rica booking happened because Kayla saw some influencer post about a resort there. She sent me the link with heart emojis and "This has to be our honeymoon." The resort was all-inclusive but expensive. $600 per night for 7 nights, plus flights. I booked it anyway because making her happy was worth it. Or so I thought. The invitations went out in June. That's when things started feeling off. Kayla became distant, started spending more time at her studio apartment, claiming she needed space to focus on final projects for school. Fair enough. Graduation was coming up, and I know school stress is real. I gave her space, kept working, figured once she graduated and the wedding was closer, she'd be more present. Then one night in late July, she came over looking serious. We sat on my couch, the one I'd built myself from reclaimed barnwood, and she dropped the bomb. "I need to talk to you about something," she said, not meeting my eyes. The tone said everything. This wasn't a "let's figure out centerpiece colors" conversation. "What's going on?" I asked, already feeling my stomach drop. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the wedding, about everything." She twisted the engagement ring on her finger. "And I think we're moving too fast." Moving too fast? Kayla, we've been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months. I know, but I'm only 26. I haven't really experienced life yet. I went from college to this relationship, and now we're getting married. It feels like I'm missing something. I sat there processing. "What are you saying?" "I think we should call off the wedding." The words hung in the air like smoke. Call off the wedding. 2 months before the date. After all the deposits, planning, invitations already sent. "You want to postpone it?" I asked, hoping that's what she meant. "No, I want to cancel it. I'm too young to be tied down. I need time to figure out who I am before I commit to spending my life with someone. Too young to be tied down. Like I was some kind of prison sentence instead of the guy who'd supported her through school, paid most of our bills, and invested everything into building a future together. This is really sudden," I said, trying to stay calm. "Where is this coming from?" She had this rehearsed quality to her voice. "I've been thinking about it for months. Every time I look at wedding stuff, I just feel anxious. Like I'm giving up my youth before I've even lived it. Why didn't you say something earlier? Before we sent invitations? Before I paid thousands in deposits?" I thought the feeling would pass, but it hasn't. If anything, it's gotten stronger. Months? I focused on that word. You felt this way for months, and you're just telling me now? I didn't want to worry you. I kept thinking maybe it was just normal wedding jitters. Wedding jitters don't last months, Kayla. That's called doubt. That's called having second thoughts. Normal people communicate those things with their partner. She looked defensive. I'm communicating now. After I've spent $12,000, after I've planned our entire future around you, after I've told my family, my friends, my clients that I'm getting married in October, I'm sorry about the timing, but there's never a good time for this conversation. There was a good time. It was months ago when you first started feeling this way. Or before I paid the venue deposit. Or before we ordered invitations. Any of those times would have been better than 2 months before the wedding. She started crying. Why are you making this about money? This is about our relationship, about my feelings, and all you care about is deposits? I care about the fact that you lied to me for months while I spent money we both knew was non-refundable. I didn't lie. I just didn't know how to tell you. That's the same thing, Kayla. You knew how you felt. You chose not to tell me. That's lying by omission. I felt like I was in a bad dream. So that's it? You're just done? I'm sorry. I know this is hard, but I have to be honest about how I feel. Honest. Right. Except she'd been lying by omission for months while I paid for a wedding she apparently never wanted. Okay, I said finally. If that's how you feel, then we're done. She looked relieved, which somehow made it worse. Like she'd expected me to beg or argue. Instead, I accepted it and moved on to practicalities. I'll start canceling things tomorrow, I continued. You should move your stuff out by the end of the week. That's when she held up her hand, showing the ring. I'm keeping this, by the way. I stared at her. What? The ring. It was a gift. I'm keeping it. Kayla, that ring cost $12,000. You're calling off the wedding. You need to give it back. No, I don't. You gave it to me. It's mine now. The entitlement was staggering. She was ending our engagement, but somehow thought she deserved to keep a ring that represented a promise she was breaking. That ring was a conditional gift, I said, keeping my voice level. The condition was marriage. No marriage, no ring. That's not how it works. Once you give someone a gift, it's theirs. I looked it up. She'd looked it up, meaning she'd been planning this for a while and had already researched how to keep the ring when she pulled the trigger. Give me the ring, Kayla. No. You're really going to keep a $12,000 ring after calling off our wedding? It's not about the money. It's about principle. You gave it to me and I'm keeping it. I stood up. Get your stuff and get out. Fine, but I'm taking the ring. She left that night, and I sat in my empty house trying to process what just happened. My fiancé had ended our engagement, kept the ring, and left me holding the bag on thousands of dollars in wedding expenses. But I wasn't about to let this go. The next morning, I called my friend Jared. He's a lawyer, handles small business contracts mostly, but he knows people. I explained the situation and asked what my options were. In Tennessee, engagement rings are considered conditional gifts, he said. If the recipient breaks off the engagement, they're legally required to return the ring. You've got a solid case. What about emotional damages? That's trickier. You'd need to prove she acted in bad faith or caused you significant financial harm through deception. Did she? I thought about it. The months of pretending everything was fine while planning an exit. The timing. Late enough that I'd already paid most deposits. The premeditated research into keeping the ring. Yeah, I said. She did. Then let's build a case. Over the next week, I documented everything. Every deposit receipt, every text message about wedding planning, every email exchange with vendors. I calculated my total financial losses. Venue deposit, catering deposit, photographer, flowers, honeymoon, $12,700 in non-refundable expenses. Add the ring at $12,000, and we're looking at nearly $25,000. The documentation process was meticulous. I created a spreadsheet with every single expense, organized by date and category. Each entry included the vendor name, amount paid, date paid, and whether Kayla had been consulted or approved the expense. I found text messages from April where she'd written, "Yes, book them," about the photographer. Emails from May where she'd said the venue was absolutely perfect and we should lock it in immediately. Messages from June where she'd helped me write the deposit check for the caterer, telling me how excited she was about the menu we'd chosen. Every piece of evidence showed a woman who was fully engaged in wedding planning, enthusiastically approving expenses, and giving no indication she wanted out. Meanwhile, according to her own admission, she'd been having doubts since May or June. I also went through our joint bank account history, found dozens of transactions where I'd covered her expenses, groceries, gas, her portion of utilities, even her car insurance when she was short on cash one month. Over 2 years, I'd probably subsidized her life to the tune of $15,000 on top of everything else. But I wanted more than just the ring back. I wanted compensation for the fact that she'd strung me along while secretly planning to bail, costing me time and money I could never get back. I pulled our text message history and found something interesting. In mid-June, she texted her friend Rachel. I knew because Rachel had accidentally texted me once thinking it was Kayla, so her number was saved in my phone. The message thread was visible in our shared cloud backup before she'd removed access. Kayla had written, "Still having doubts, but the deposits are paid, so might as well see how I feel closer to the date. Might as well see how she feels." like our wedding was a movie she was on the fence about seeing. And this was mid-June, 5 weeks before she finally told me. Jared connected me with Blake, a lawyer who specialized in civil cases, including broken engagements. Blake reviewed everything and nodded. This is solid. She clearly knew she was going to break it off, but let you continue spending money on the wedding. That's bad faith. We can argue emotional distress based on the deception and financial harm. What are we talking about for damages? Ring return is guaranteed. For emotional damages, we'll ask for $15,000. Enough to cover your actual losses, plus compensation for the emotional harm. Judge might award less, but it's a reasonable starting point. We filed the lawsuit the following week. The paperwork laid out everything. The ring value, the timeline of our relationship, her sudden decision to end the engagement, her refusal to return the ring, and the financial damages I'd incurred due to her deception. The lawsuit was served at her apartment. According to the process server, she looked shocked when she opened the door and saw the papers. Apparently, she thought I'd just let it go. Wrong. Her reaction came fast. Within hours, I had a barrage of texts from her and her friends. From Kayla, "I can't believe you're suing me. This is insane. You're being vindictive and cruel." From her best friend Rachel, "Wow, real mature. She dodged a bullet. No wonder she left you." From her mother, "My daughter is heartbroken and you're making this worse. Shame on you." I didn't respond to any of them. Everything from here on out would go through lawyers. That's how you protect yourself. You stop engaging emotionally and start operating strategically. Blake advised me to document every contact attempt. They're going to try to paint you as the bad guy. Let them. It'll only help our case when we show the judge you've been professional while they've been harassing you. The harassment continued for days. Kayla's friends were relentless on social media, posting vague stuff about toxic men who can't handle rejection and guys who think they own women. Never mentioned me by name, but everyone in our social circle knew who they were talking about. Rachel posted a long Instagram story about supporting women who escape controlling relationships. She included a list of red flags that were clearly meant to describe me. Monitors finances, makes all the decisions, isolates partner from friends. The irony was rich considering I'd encouraged Kayla to maintain her friendships and never questioned how she spent her own money. Another friend, Jessica, shared an article about financial abuse in relationships with the caption, "Some men use money as a weapon." The comments were full of people agreeing about how disgusting it was when men punish women for their choices. One of Kayla's college friends even created a poll. If someone gives you a gift, is it yours to keep? With options for obviously yes, and only controlling people ask for gifts back. The results were 87% in favor of keeping gifts, which just proved most people don't understand conditional gift law. The worst part was how quickly mutual friends chose sides without asking for my perspective. People I'd known for years were suddenly treating me like a villain based entirely on Kayla's version of events. My buddy Jared sent me screenshots of a group chat I wasn't in where people were discussing what a psycho I was being. One person wrote, "Imagine suing someone you supposedly loved over a piece of jewelry." Another said, "This is why I don't trust men with money." Nobody seemed to care that she'd hidden her true feelings for months while I spent thousands on a wedding she never wanted. Nobody seemed to think that was the actual betrayal in this situation. Fine by me. Let them talk. I had receipts. Kayla hired a lawyer, some guy her father's friend recommended. Her legal strategy became clear when we received her response to the lawsuit. She claimed the ring was an unconditional gift and that I was trying to punish her for exercising her right to change her mind. Her lawyer argued that engagement rings in Tennessee were subject to interpretation, that she'd acted in good faith by being honest about her feelings, and that my emotional distress claim was frivolous and vindictive. Blake just smiled when he read it. They're going to lose. Tennessee case law is crystal clear on conditional gifts, and their argument that she acted in good faith directly contradicts the timeline. She admitted to feeling this way for months while letting you spend money on the wedding. The court date was set for October. Ironically, the same month we were supposed to get married. Instead of exchanging vows, we'd be exchanging legal arguments in front of a judge. The weeks leading up to court were surprisingly calm on my end. I focused on work, took on a major commission for a custom dining set that kept me busy, and avoided anywhere I might run into Kayla or her friends. My life was actually more peaceful without her in it. No drama, no wedding stress, just work and quiet evenings at home. My friends rallied around me. Jared came over most weekends, and we'd work in my shop together. He was learning woodworking as a hobby, and teaching him basic techniques kept my mind off the legal stuff. "She really thought she could keep a $12,000 ring?" he asked one Saturday, while sanding a table leg. Apparently, some people have zero shame. The court date arrived. I showed up in a suit, one I'd actually bought for the wedding, but never got to wear. Blake met me outside the courthouse with a folder full of documentation. Remember, stay calm and professional, he advised. The judge is going to ask you direct questions. Answer honestly, don't embellish, and let the evidence speak for itself. We entered the courtroom. Kayla was already there with her lawyer, sitting at the opposite table. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her phone. When she saw me, she looked away quickly. The judge entered. Older woman, probably in her 60s, with the kind of expression that said she'd seen every variety of human nonsense and had zero patience for any of it. Civil case number 2023-4782, Blake Patterson representing the plaintiff, regarding the return of an engagement ring and damages for emotional distress. Counselors, present your cases. Blake stood first. He laid out the timeline methodically. Our relationship, the proposal, the expensive ring, the wedding planning, the deposits paid, and finally Kayla's decision to end the engagement while refusing to return the ring. Your Honor, Tennessee law is clear that engagement rings are conditional gifts. The condition, marriage, was not met due to the defendant's decision to break the engagement. Therefore, she is legally obligated to return the ring. He continued, pulling out documented evidence. Furthermore, the plaintiff has suffered significant financial damages due to the defendant's bad faith actions. She admitted to having doubts for months, but allowed the plaintiff to continue spending money on wedding preparations. This deception caused him to incur $12,700 in non-refundable expenses. We're seeking return of the ring plus $15,000 in damages for emotional distress and financial harm. Kayla's lawyer stood up. He tried the sympathy angle. Your Honor, my client is a young woman who realized she wasn't ready for marriage. She acted courageously by being honest about her feelings, rather than going through with a wedding that would have been a mistake. The plaintiff is trying to punish her for exercising her fundamental right to change her mind about a life-altering commitment. He held up the ring. Apparently, Kayla had brought it to court. This ring represents a gift freely given. My client treasures it as a symbol of a relationship that was meaningful to her, even though it ultimately didn't lead to marriage. To force her to return it would be cruel and vindictive. The judge listened without expression. Then she looked at Kayla. Ms. Patterson, when did you first start having doubts about the marriage? Kayla stood, looking uncomfortable. Probably around May or June. And when did you inform the plaintiff of these doubts? I told him in late July. During those 2 months between May and July, did the plaintiff continue making financial commitments toward the wedding? I guess so, yes. You guess so or you know so? He did, yes. Did you, at any point during those 2 months, suggest postponing the wedding or expressing your concerns before he made those financial commitments? Kayla hesitated. No, Your Honor. The judge made a note. And when you ended the engagement, did the plaintiff ask for the ring back? Yes. And you refused? Yes, because it was a gift to me. The judge looked at the ring, then at Kayla. Ms. Patterson, did you research the legal status of engagement rings before ending your engagement? Kayla's face went red. I looked up some information, yes. So you knew the plaintiff would likely want the ring back? And you researched whether you'd be legally obligated to return it before you ended the engagement? I just wanted to know my rights. Your rights or your options for keeping an expensive piece of jewelry while ending the relationship? Kayla's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, my client was trying to educate herself. Counselor, I'm asking the questions here. The judge turned back to Kayla. You admit you had doubts for months. Didn't communicate them? Continued to let your fiancé spend money on a wedding you were planning to cancel. Researched the ring situation. Then kept the ring when you ended things. Is that accurate? When you put it that way, I'm putting it the way the evidence shows it happened. Is my summary accurate? I didn't mean to hurt him. That's not what I asked. Is my summary of the facts accurate? Yes, Kayla said quietly. The judge looked at her for a long moment, then turned to Blake. Counselor, show me the receipts for the wedding deposits. Blake presented the folder. The judge flipped through page by page, venue contract with deposit receipt, catering invoice, photographer agreement, honeymoon booking confirmation. Each one time-stamped between May and July. During the months, Kayla admitted she was having doubts. $12,700 in non-refundable deposits, the judge noted. All paid by the plaintiff. Did the defendant contribute financially to these expenses? Minimal, Your Honor, Blake said. Her family covered the rehearsal dinner and her dress. Everything else was the plaintiff's responsibility. The judge set down the folder. Here's what I'm seeing. A man who was planning a future with someone he loved. A woman who lost interest, but stayed quiet while he spent thousands of dollars on that future. Then she ended things, and tried to keep an expensive ring in the process. She looked at Kayla. Does that sound about right? Your Honor, I was confused and didn't know how to handle... You were confused, so you researched whether you could keep the ring legally before dumping your fiancé? That doesn't sound like confusion. That sounds like calculation. Kayla's lawyer tried again. Your Honor, with all respect, my client's emotional state. Counselor, I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've seen every version of this case. Young woman gets an expensive ring, changes her mind, wants to keep the jewelry. I understand the emotional complexity of ending an engagement. What I don't understand is the lack of basic honesty and decency. She looked at Kayla again. You're 26 years old. You want to be treated as an adult capable of making your own decisions. Fine. Adults face consequences for their decisions. You decided to end this engagement. You decided to keep the ring. Now you get to face the legal consequences of those decisions. The judge reviewed her notes one more time, then delivered the ruling. On the matter of the engagement ring, Tennessee law is unambiguous. Engagement rings are conditional gifts, with the condition being marriage. When an engagement is broken by the recipient, the ring must be returned to the giver. Ms. Patterson, you are hereby ordered to immediately return the engagement ring to the plaintiff. Kayla's face crumpled. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she shook her head. The judge continued. On the matter of emotional damages, the plaintiff has demonstrated that the defendant acted in bad faith. She concealed her doubts for months while allowing him to incur substantial financial obligations based on the false premise that the engagement was proceeding toward marriage. This constitutes deceptive behavior that caused measurable harm. She paused, considering. The plaintiff is seeking $15,000 in damages. Based on the documented financial losses of $12,700, plus the emotional distress caused by the defendant's deception, I'm awarding the plaintiff $13,000 in compensatory damages. This figure accounts for his actual financial losses, plus a modest amount for the emotional harm caused by the defendant's bad faith actions. She looked at Kayla. Ms. Patterson, you are ordered to pay the plaintiff $13,000 within 60 days. Failure to comply will result in wage garnishment. Additionally, you are to surrender the engagement ring to the bailiff immediately, who will return it to the plaintiff before you leave this courtroom. Your Honor, please, Kayla started. The ring, now. Kayla slowly twisted the ring off her finger, tears streaming down her face. The bailiff walked over, and she placed it in his hand, like she was giving up a piece of her soul. The bailiff brought it to the judge, who examined it briefly before handing it to Blake. Mr. Blake, please confirm this is the ring in question. Blake looked at it, then at me. I nodded. Confirmed, Your Honor. Then this matter is concluded. The ring is returned to the plaintiff, and Ms. Patterson has 60 days to remit the awarded damages. Case dismissed. The gavel came down. Just like that, it was over. Kayla sat there crying while her lawyer packed up his briefcase, looking frustrated. I stood up, took the ring from Blake, and slipped it into my pocket. It felt heavier than I remembered, probably because of everything it represented now. Not love and promises, but deception and consequences. As we walked out of the courtroom, I could hear Kayla's sobs echoing behind us. Her mother had shown up and was consoling her in the hallway. I kept walking, didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Blake clapped me on the shoulder. That went better than expected. The judge saw right through her story. What about the $13,000? She'll pay. Once the wage garnishment threat is on the table, they always pay. Her father will probably help her. But either way, you'll get your money. We shook hands, and I walked to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat for a few minutes, just processing. 2 years of my life had led to this moment. Sitting in a courthouse parking lot with an engagement ring in my pocket and a legal judgment in my favor. It wasn't how I'd imagined things ending, but it was definitely ending on my terms. The aftermath was predictable. Kayla's friends went nuclear on social media, painting me as a monster who forced her to return the ring and sued her out of vindictiveness. They conveniently left out the part where she'd strung me along for months, while I paid for a wedding she never intended to have. Rachel posted, "Some men really can't handle rejection without turning it into revenge. Disgusting behavior." Another friend commented, "Taking someone to court over a ring? That's sociopath energy." She dodged a bullet. I didn't engage. Let them talk. The judge had seen the evidence and made her ruling. That was the only validation I needed. The check arrived 6 weeks later. Not from Kayla directly, but from her father. There was a short note. "This clears the debt owed to you by my daughter. Please consider this matter fully resolved and do not contact our family again." Fair enough. I had no interest in contact anyway. I deposited the check, and it felt like closing a chapter. The money covered my losses and then some. The ring went into my safe. I'd sell it eventually, but not yet. For now, it was proof that standing up for yourself and refusing to be taken advantage of actually works. My life improved dramatically after everything settled. The house felt lighter without Kayla's presence. I could focus on my work without the constant background stress of wedding planning and relationship maintenance. The custom dining set I'd been working on turned out beautifully. The clients were so happy they referred me to 3 other people, and suddenly I had a wait list for commissions. Business was better than ever. Jared and I started a Thursday night tradition: work in the shop together, order takeout, just decompress from the week. No drama, no complications, just friendship and productivity. "You seem different," he observed one night while helping me stain a bookshelf. More relaxed. "I feel different. Like I can breathe again." That's what happens when you remove toxic people from your life. He wasn't wrong. Kayla had been high maintenance in ways I hadn't fully recognized while we were together. The constant need for attention, the little comments about my lifestyle being boring, the subtle pressure to spend more money on things that didn't matter to me. Without all that noise, I could just exist. About 4 months after the court case, I ran into Kayla at a coffee shop downtown. She was with some guy I didn't recognize. Younger, dressed like he was trying too hard, talking loudly about some startup idea. She saw me and her face went pale. I just nodded politely and went to order my coffee. When I turned back around, she was standing next to me. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. "I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just 5 minutes." I looked at her. She'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. There were circles under her eyes, and she looked exhausted. 5 minutes, I agreed. We sat at a corner table. Her new guy was watching us from across the room, trying to look unbothered but clearly curious. "I wanted to apologize," she started, "for everything. The way I handled the breakup was wrong. Keeping the ring was wrong. I was selfish and immature, and you didn't deserve any of it." "Okay. I've been thinking about it a lot, especially after court. What the judge said really hit me. I was calculating. I did string you along, and I'm sorry." I studied her face. She seemed genuine, but it didn't matter anymore. Apologies don't undo damage. They just acknowledge it happened. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied, "but it doesn't change anything." "I know. I just wanted you to know that I realize I was wrong. Completely wrong." Noted. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, "Are you doing okay?" "I'm doing great, actually. Business is good, life is simple, no complaints." She nodded, looking down at her hands. No ring, probably couldn't afford another one. Or maybe she learned her lesson about accepting expensive jewelry she didn't intend to honor the commitment for. "I heard you sold the ring," she said. "Not yet. Keeping it as a reminder." "Of what?" "That I can trust my instincts, protect myself, and not let people take advantage of me." She flinched but nodded. "Fair enough." Her new guy was getting impatient, motioning for her to wrap it up. "I should go," she said, standing up. "Thanks for listening." "Take care of yourself, Kayla." She walked away, and I watched her rejoin the guy who probably had no idea what he was getting into. Maybe he'd figure it out. Maybe he wouldn't. Not my problem anymore. I finished my coffee and went back to my truck. The encounter didn't upset me like I thought it might. If anything, it confirmed what I already knew. I'd made the right choice in fighting for what was mine, and refusing to be the nice guy who just absorbs the loss to avoid conflict. These days, my life is exactly how I want it. The shop is thriving. I'm working on projects I actually care about. And there's no drama. I date casually, but haven't met anyone I want to get serious with. And that's fine. I learned the hard way that rushing into commitment with someone who isn't fully invested is a recipe for disaster. The ring eventually sold for $9,800. Lost some value, but that's jewelry for you. I put the money in my business account and used it to upgrade some equipment. Every time I use that new table saw, I think about how it came from refusing to be a pushover. Jared asked me recently if I'd ever get engaged again. "Eventually," I said, "but next time I'll know what warning signs to watch for. And I'll definitely have a clearer conversation about expectations before dropping 12 grand on a ring." He laughed. "Learned your lesson?" "Expensive lesson, but yeah. Sometimes you have to lose money to gain wisdom." That's deep. That's reality. The whole experience taught me something valuable. Standing up for yourself isn't vindictive or petty, it's necessary. When someone wrongs you, especially financially, you have every right to pursue justice through proper channels. The court system exists for exactly these situations. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.